Are these sessions confidential, Bubbles? What? I'm out of here. What is up, guys, and welcome to another video. Before we hit the computer and start coding, hit that subscribe button down below, leave a like if you're enjoying the content, and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you want to see coded up next. In this video, we are on episode 20, storing sessions in the database. When a user comes to our site, we will store some session data on that user in our database. This is helpful for keeping a user logged in while they're browsing our website, or we can easily log them out at any time if we need to. We just delete that row from the sessions table in the database, and the user is automatically logged out. As always, links will be in the description below to things like the GitHub repository for the framework, the Hello World repository, Bubbles merch out on Printify. Go support the channel there. New Discord server, guys. Join the Discord server, join the community, and keep an eye out for the live streams. I'm gonna try to start live streaming in November at some point on Saturday mornings. With that being said, let's do the computer. Welcome to Hello World episode 20, Database Sessions. In this video, we're going to be storing the user's session data in the database. This will allow us to keep the user logged in as they're navigating from page to page, and all we have to do is query our sessions table with the session ID, and we'll get back all of the user's info for their session. Before we begin, we want to make sure that we have our framework updated, so we have the core sessions file. To make sure our framework's updated, you want to come over here to jstolpe/ircoding. You'll see here in the core, we have the session.php file here. What you want to do is you just want to download this whole code base, and you want to just replace the entire core folder, because that's how you update the framework. You'll get the most updated core files. Once you have the session, we need to create the database. If we hop into the db dumps folder inside of our Hello World project, we want to look for the sessions table here. So we're going to copy this drop table right here. And then inside of our Hello World database, where currently we only have the users table, we're going to run the SQL. Go back to the structure, and there's our sessions table. The structure of our sessions table is very simple. We have a primary key of ID, the IP address that the user will be accessing our site from, timestamp when the session was created, user ID for that user if they're logged in, and then we can specify any data we want to save along with the user's session. We've updated the IR coding framework. We've created the sessions table in our database. Now we have to update our global includes file here to tell the framework that we want to use the sessions. In our WAMP includes folder, we have our Hello World global includes. We're going to go ahead and open that up, and we're going to scroll down here to the use session define. Up until now, we have not been using sessions, so it's just set to false. What we want to do is we want to set this to true, and then we're going to define the session parameters. And the first param for our session array is simple. We're going to tell the session that we want to use the session. Then we're going to create a session name. I am going to use site folder name, which will be Hello World. That will be the name of our session. Next up, we have the session ID time to regen. And we'll just set this to 300 seconds for now. Every 300 seconds, we're going to get a new session ID for that user, which brings us to the seconds till expire. This is where the session will actually expire and the user will be logged out. And for this, I'm just going to do 60 days. If the user is not active for 60 days, the session will cease to exist and they will be logged out. Then we have to specify database table name, sessions, so we know where to store the sessions. Now that we have our sessions array, we're going to copy that and we're going to paste it in our index file. So our global include here, we're getting all our global defines here. You don't want to keep your global defines in the repository. That's why they're outside of it. And we're going to come down here to our autoload params. And in the autoload params, we have our session. And so we basically just replace this array with our global defines array, save that, and now our Hello World is set up to use sessions and store them in the database. Hopping over to localhost/Hello World, refresh the page. No errors, it's a good sign. Hopping over to our sessions table here, refresh this table, and we see a new session, the session ID. Now this ID, if you inspect the page, go to storage, and then you can filter items by the session ID. There's our session that has been created for us. The name Hello World, session ID, domain when it expires, 60 days out, and there is our session viewable in the browser. Every time the page gets hit here, we're going to query the database for this session ID right here, and we're going to get back this data. The IP address they came from, the timestamp, user ID, and data. Now the user ID is 0 because they're not logged in, and the data is null because we're not saving anything if the user is not logged in. But if the user was logged in, we'd have their user ID here, and then we can store whatever we want in the data. You could have their profile information, username, email address, profile picture, and that's what we would store in this data array. And that's how we would keep track of the user being logged in as they browse through our website, because every time they hit our page, we return this row for the user, and we have their information. Now if we refresh the page, now when we try to filter out by that ID, it's gone. That's because it's been regenerated. It regenerates every 300 seconds. We refresh our sessions table, and look at that. We have a new ID. We search for that. There is our Hello World session. And again, that's just for security purposes. Change the ID, so if somebody actually gets a hold of this ID, they only have 300 seconds until it doesn't exist in the database anymore, and they can't get our session data back. All right, let's head over to our login page. When the user logs in, we actually have to update our session table here so the user ID gets populated and the data gets populated as well. I'm going to do that on login and sign up. Models, login, and the login user is right here. We've done our validation, the form is valid, everything is good. We just have to store the data in the session now. To do this, we're going to call our session class, which is that core class. Framework's going to take care of the heavy lifting for us, so we have to just call the core session class, set session user ID. And our user ID is going to come from our validated login form, where we have the user info and then the user's ID is in that user info. So make sure this is a variable, validate equals validate user info ID. So our session class is taking care of updating that user ID field in our database. I'm going to copy this line right here and we're going to call our set data function. This takes in two parameters. The key, it could be whatever key you want to name it. I'm going to call this user info, and then whatever data you want to store in that key. So when we retrieve the data out of the session, we're going to say, hey, get me the data for the user info key that I specified here. And we're not just going to save the ID, we're going to save the whole user info array. That way in the session data blob in the database, it'll have all the user info, their username, email, first name, last name, all that good stuff. Save that, and let's go ahead and test out our login. hello@world.com, our super secure password. Let's go ahead and click login. There's our valid pop-up. Click OK. We haven't updated anything on the front end yet, but what we're looking for here is in our sessions table here. If we check out our sessions, now we see that our user ID has been saved along with our blob data. And let's just see what that blob data looks like. And if we open that data up, the blob doesn't look pretty, but you can verify that the session has been saved. There is the session ID, IP address, user ID, and here's the data array that we saved with our set data function. We set the key to be user info and then just threw all the user's information into that key. So we got their email, their key value, their username, first name, last name, and that's how we update the user's session when they log in. Now over in our server login function on the JavaScript side of things, we're going to want to get rid of this alert value here because we're moving on from that. And instead of hiding the loader here, we're going to do a window.location.href and send the user to our Hello World base URL or the homepage. Let's head back over to our database here. Now the nice thing about this is if you need to kick anybody out of the website, log them out immediately, well you just hop over to the sessions table and you delete the row from the session. Boom, they're deleted. Now when they try to hit the page, the session ID they're passing along doesn't exist anymore, so the user will not be able to get any data back. So they've been logged out. I'm going to go ahead and log in again. And now we are redirected to our homepage. Refresh our sessions table here. We've been logged in, and there we have it. Now we're going to want to do the very same thing for signing a user up. I'm going to open up the sign up JavaScript file over in assets, signup-script.js, where we also have the same alert here. But we're going to get rid of that because we're moving on. And we're just going to do the same thing we did for our login. Send them to the homepage where they will be logged in. Because once they sign up, we're going to save the session data, and at that point, they're going to be logged in. Front end is updated. Now we just have to go to our sign up model and update the sign up function for the user. And right here is where we got to in our last video. Got the new user inserted in the database, and we're just printing it out. And we're going to do the same thing we did in the login model. Copy those two lines there and paste them right here. Form's been validated, we've inserted a new user. All we have to do is the same thing as we did in the login model. Set the session user ID, which would be our new user ID right here. And then we're going to set our data with the key user info. And the user info here is going to be our new user variable. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and delete our session here, make sure we're logged out. In the next video, we will set up the logout functionality, but right now we don't have that set up, so I just have to delete the session from the database. Let's go ahead and sign up. New user email, we'll say world@hello.com. Username, world hello. First name world, last name hello. Password, confirm. Now we should sign up and we should see the user in the database and also a new session for the user that's logged in. Sign up. All seems to have went well. Go and check our users table. We have our second user, world@hello.com, and the user ID is 5. So now let's go ahead and look at our sessions table. We have a session for the user, and they're logged in. So that covers logging the user in, signing the user up, and getting their data saved to the database for their session. Now the first thing we notice on this page when we are logged in is this drop-down menu here. It says login and sign up. We've already signed up. We've already logged in. We need to update this drop-down accordingly for when the user's logged in. So we want to have things like settings and log out. We don't want to show login and sign up anymore. Over in our users model, we're going to set up a very simple function to check if the user is logged in or not. Our new function is logged in. Since we're using the session, we have access to the session right here, and we're going to say get data. So if I say user ID, we're going to get back the user ID in the database for that session row. This user ID right here. If the user ID is 0, it will return false. If there's a number in there, it will return true. A very simple way to know if they're logged in. We return that value. And now we can call this user's model is logged in throughout our site whenever we need to check if the user's logged in or not. And we're going to call this function over here from our templates default HTML template over where our nav bar is being generated. Right here, the user menu. We have our login and our sign up. And we're going to wrap this in an if statement based on if the user's logged in. Right here, we're going to say PHP if this user's model is logged in. It's that simple. If they're logged in, do stuff. Else, they're not logged in. And so we're going to display out the login menu item and the sign up menu item. And if first menu item we're going to show if they're logged in is the settings. Update our GA name here for Google Analytics, user menu settings, GA label, settings, settings there, FA solid, FA gear. Then we have our logout menu item option. Update our Google Analytics stuff, log out. We have our FA solid, FA sign out alt. And in future videos, we'll add the functionality for logout and settings, but right now, we just want to make sure that the menu shows up accordingly if you're logged in or not. Now, when we refresh our page and hover over the menu, we're logged in, so we have our settings and our logout functionality. For now, we can manually log the user out by just deleting their row here in the sessions table. So if I delete this, there, I've just logged the user out. So if I refresh the page, hover over this icon here, we have our login and our sign up because the user's logged out. There's no session data in the database, which if there's no session info in the database, well, then the user's logged out. So we display our login and sign up functionality. Log in one more time here for fun. And I have my logged in user menu instead of my logged out user menu because over here in my sessions table now, I have a new row for my user ID 2. And that is Hello World episode 20. Database sessions. We're now saving session data in the database. All we have to do is pass along that ID to the session table and we can get back the current session info for the user. We got the login working, the sign up working, we have the user menu switching out based on if the user is logged in or not, and in the next few videos we will be looking at the logout functionality and the settings page. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, hope you learned something. Hit that subscribe button, leave a like, drop a comment down below, let me know what you want to see coded up next. I'll catch you later.